tremendous episode of NXT tonight. Absolutely tremendous. Everything linked together. There was still some surprises. It was a fun episode that really piggybacked well off a heat wave. I mean, NXT is on a run, man. It's on a really good run. So I can't wait to get into this. We're going to talk about this show. Damon Kemp was released, which is something we're going to talk about a little bit later when he gets put in the trunk of a car. But the news and note that doesn't quite fit into the regular show is that Full Sail is actually teasing a return of NXT to Full Sail campus. For those of you who know, Full Sail was the home of NXT until I think the pandemic. And then they moved to the Performance Center, and it's been at the Performance Center ever since. But now it looks like they might be going back to Full Sail, or at least doing something at Full Sail. So apparently WWE production team was hanging out at Full Sail recording things on campus. I want to see what that's going to be. I know a lot of the NXT Black and Gold lovers are salivating at the thought. It's not going to look much different, but it's going to look a little bit different. So I'm okay with that. Can't wait to see what they're going to do. Maybe they'll just do a pay-per-view there or something. And that could be cool, like a cool nostalgic pay-per-view. All right, let's get into the show. Ethan Page bragged that it only took him 6 weeks to take over NXT. He said that everybody hates him, from the crowd to the people in the back, so he has security. This is, at this point, Oro Mensah was a big old idiot, jumped over the barricade and got taken away by his security. He did. The funny thing is, he said he has security to protect him from, quote, overzealous delinquents. And then here comes Oro Mensah. He said that we're in an ego era. Trick Williams came out there, wanted a rematch, said he wanted it tonight. Ethan Page refused. Shawn Spears came out, said that Ethan Page owes him a thank you. He actually got his thank you. Shawn Spears then called Trick Williams a crybaby and said he should go to the back of the line. Javon Evans came out there, told Ethan Page and Shawn Spears to shut up, and said that he was nearly NXT champion and that next time he won't be near. And he started to fight. So it was a fight between all four guys. Javon Evans and Trick Williams versus Ethan Page and Shawn Spears was set up as the main event of the show. The crowd was chanting, "Shut the hell up," because they actually learned to not use really harsh language in NXT. And Ethan Page did not break stride on his promo. He just talked over them, which is incredible. Incredible focus by Ethan Page. Javon Evans talks like he has a mouthful of sand. It's that southern thing. He sounds really southern and stuffy. I don't know what it is. It's not Ahmed Johnson mushmouth stuff though. But it's clearly the boy from down south somewhere. And I know he's very young. I don't know. He sounds weird when he talks. It's very southern and urban and kind of muffled. But he's trying. He's going out there and he's trying very hard. This, of course, ended up being a running story throughout the night because it ties into Brooks Jensen, who apologized for his behavior and all the things he said about NXT. He said he was getting out of control, wishes he could take back what he said. Eva claimed that she was ready to release him. Her and Shawn Michaels were ready to release him. And then, quote, people went to bat for him to get him a second chance. He thanked her for the second chance and then promptly went out and beat up Javon Evans. After that, Ava was pretty pissed that he jumped Javon Evans. Josh Briggs was pissed that he jumped Javon Evans. He did it because he just wanted to make an impact. But when he jumped Javon Evans from behind, Javon Evans was injured and could not wrestle. But he was going to have to face him next week if Javon Evans is medically cleared. This left an opening in the tag team match for Trick Williams. He needed a partner. Later, Josh Briggs was actually suggested to be the partner for Trick Williams because he said he wanted to get his hands on Shawn Spears. At the desk, Mr. Stone turns around and says, "I can't believe you'd say his name," which was the dead giveaway who the partner was going to be, and it was indeed Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry blew the roof off the place. Everybody loves this guy. And the interesting thing is, so many people are now starting to ask questions like, somebody said he's a meme, that they never see him, there's never any clips of him actually wrestling. It's always clips of him memeing stuff, singing, doing vignettes or whatever. And they said, like, he must be one of those, and then the bell rings kind of guys where he's super over until he actually wrestles. And it's like, no, he's actually pretty decent. Is he Bryan Danielson or Shawn Michaels? No. Nah. He's a pretty big dude too. He's not like a small guy either. But the thing is, he has charisma. He has personality. And he has a very easy connection with the audience. He's super over in NXT. And this is only his second appearance. So it worked out great. Joe Hendry was there. He got the pin too. He got the win. But it was because of Trick Williams. Trick Williams hit Shawn Spears with the trick shot. Tossed him in the ring. Joe Hendry hit his finish to win. Ethan Page had been chased off by Oro Mensah. So Oro Mensah, he is getting a great opportunity here. He's going to be working with the NXT champion. And it's amazing. We'll talk about it later because it's going to get racial. So we'll talk about it later. Okay. We'll talk about it near the end. So Ethan Page, very mid, incredibly mid. Certainly the kind of guy that's an empty suit in terms of being an NXT champion. Hopefully this is just a story for Trick Williams to double back and get the title again. And we're not looking at a really long run with Ethan Page, because Ethan Page being in this position right now, it's hard to say that. I want to say he was kind of like, it wouldn't be fair to say Bobby Roode, because Bobby Roode actually had his own persona, his own voice and everything. He had character. But there was still something vaguely generic about Bobby Roode. This is why, like, he's the, one of those black and gold NXT champions that nobody talks about a lot. Bobby Roode, because there was, outside of like the one really great feud I liked with Roderick Strong, there was not a lot there for you to work with Bobby Roode. In terms of his personality, his promos, and his presentation. His presentation, I should say, is top notch. So I'm thinking Ethan Page might end up like that, where he's blandly competent at everything. He's not terrible at anything, but he also doesn't jump off the page. No pun intended. Actually, pun intended. He's definitely going to need some work. I know this guy's a little bit older than the rest of the guys on the roster. He's not like, I don't think he's like 35 or anything like that. He might be like early 30s. But he certainly has to start digging and doing some work. All right. Carmen Petrovic defeated Ariana Grace. This match was, it wasn't the best. Ariana Grace threw a knee strike, which she missed by the width of a football field. I mean, Jesus Christ. You could drive a truck through that. It was like a Fred Sanford punch. If you ever watched, if you ever watched Sanford and Son, like the boxing episode of Sanford and Son, when Fred Sanford threw that right hook or whatever, and it had like, so much space there that he was in no way, shape, or form going to make contact. It was that bad. Carmen Petrovic ended up winning the match. These girls worked way too soft. It's happened again later on in the show where these girls are working very soft against each other. Heritage Cup Championship, Tony D'Angelo defeated Lexis King 2-1. Eddie Thorpe was DJing the match and distracting Lexis King to continue their feud of Lexis King talking about how EDM is stupid robot music. I noticed on this match that Lexis King's belly seeps over his tights. I know he's kind of young. He's like in his early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. He needs to tighten up a little bit. He's not in a position like, I know he's getting like a Chris Jericho body type without Chris Jericho's length of career. Gotta tighten up a little bit. He's not like egregiously fat, like that Morishima kid that everybody's trying to put over on the internet. But he could tighten up. He could use some work to tighten up. Everybody's surprised at Eddie Thorpe or the LGBT Tatanka, and I'm starting to think that the LGBT Tatanka joint is not just a joke. I think it's real. I think that part is real. Chief Pride flag here. Everybody's asking the question, like, when did he become a DJ? And he's always been a DJ. Like, it hasn't been a part of his character, but I knew he was a DJ when they signed him, because literally, if you see his Twitter account, it's him DJing in clubs. So I knew he was a DJ. They started bringing it into his character about, maybe about a month ago. Maybe that's a little too long. Maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So for those of you who don't really follow the product, that's why he's a DJ. It's because in real life he's a DJ, and since being an Indian is boring, it's just gonna make him a DJ. So DJ Tatanka, how about that? That explains both gimmicks, doesn't it? All right, DJ Tatanka, because he really is Indian and he really is a DJ. So there that goes. Thea Hale was super excited for her match tonight. She's gonna have a match with Izzy Dane. Ridge Holland took credit for her getting this match and says that if she wins, she'll be in line for an NXT women's title shot against Roxanne Perez, which she was very excited about. And Ridge Holland wanted to make it up to Chase University, so he also got Duke Hudson a match as well, but it was against Obafemi. And Duke Hudson was like, oof. And Riley Osborne was like, oh, Obafemi's gonna kill Duke. Like, wow, what kind of partnership, friendship, relationship is this? Anyway, Thea Hale defeated Izzy Dane with a little bit of help from Tatum Paxley. Tatum Paxley crept over the barricade from the student section at Chase U and distracted Izzy Dane. Then she, I think, slammed Izzy Dane into the ring post, injuring her arm and shoulder, which allowed Thea Hale to slap on the Kimura to get a tap-out win. Later, they explained it, and they also tried to explain why Tatum Paxley is no longer obsessed with championships by saying that girls like Izzy never want to play with her, and she always has championships to chase, but it's very rare that she gets to have fun with pretty girls, cool girls like Izzy Dane. And she had a doll with her the entire time that she was talking to, like a little Barbie. And then she ripped the head of it off. And I was like, ooh, that was weird. And then, of course, out of nowhere, here comes Wendy Chu, who picked up the headless doll. So we got more creepy girls running around doing creepy girl vague stuff. Please, let's refocus Tatum Paxley on championships or something else. I don't know what's going on here. Obafemi cut a promo on Duke Hudson, threatening to destroy him. Duke Hudson said that he doesn't want Obafemi to overlook him because he's the MVP of Chase University, and he's the man who's got Trish Stratus's attention. He's going to give Obafemi an Andre Chase University size ass whooping, to which Obafemi looked unperturbed by that. He didn't look like he cared about that at all. OTM defeated the Good Brothers. Who cares about this? Those two guys are just incredibly green. It's a big win for them because the Good Brothers are former tag team champions, but who cares? Mia Yim tried to fight Jada Parker and officials broke them up. I mean, they're still trying to get at it. That one guy from OTM is wearing a face guard. There's so many people running around there in face guards. So many Richard Hamiltons running around there. So many Phantoms of the Ring around in face guards. Jesus. Okay. Let's go to Wesley now. Wesley comes out and he's real dour. He's real upset. He claimed his post-surgery goal was to beat the Unbeatable, win back his championship. But now he's lost. He doesn't know where to go from here. And said it might be time for him to step back when all of a sudden the MSK theme song played and out came Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz. I was very excited because I've been calling for the Rascalz to be used on NXT, and here they are. They came in, they gave him the big pep talk, telling him that, they don't want to see him leave. Nobody wants to see him leave. What instead they want is for the Rascalz to reform and for them to wreck shop around there. And they all three of them hugged, and history was made, and all three of these guys are brought to NXT for a while. Of course, I couldn't help but notice that they never bring Myron Reed. Myron Reed is always left off of these Rascalz things. He's a member of the group, for God's sake. I think he's the youngest member of the group, too. He's never around. They never bring this guy. He actually has attitude, personality. You know, he was in MLW. He's a real fun guy. I think he's like 23. He's like right there in the NXT age group, too. Like early 20s, early to mid 20s. Just, they always leaving him out. But this is a good promo. You know, Wesley has a good connection with the audience. Him speaking in his real voice and his real tone, I'm okay with it. Like, I don't hate it. You know, his promos are based off his connection with the audience and him being able to accurately describe what he's going through. It's a little melodramatic, but then again, this is pro wrestling. You can't really say too much about this. They ran into Gallus later after Gallus defeated TNT. TNT, whose names I don't remember. I think it's Tyreek and Tyson, or Tyson and Terrence, or whatever. I don't know. In any event, they started out like a house of fire, then they ended up losing to Gallus. Ultimately, Gallus ran into the Rascalz backstage, and they said, like, what is this anyway? And so Wesley explained that if it's him and Wentz that they want to fight, they're fighting MSK. But if they're unlucky enough to fight all three of them, then they're fighting the Rascalz. So then the Gallus said they don't want them guys there. They don't need any TNA guys there. And he said, take your asses out of here, and you take that other fake Scotsman. And they was about to mention his name, and then Joe was like, no, don't say his name. Don't say his name. Obviously, this was before Joe Hendry actually showed up. So they really playing a game where Joe Hendry is the boogeyman. And if you literally say his name, he literally will appear. So it's like he's Candyman, which is hilarious. So they avoid saying his name, but they allude to him a lot. It's like he's Voldemort, which is great because he's a babyface character, which makes it even funnier. Like, it's one thing when you try to avoid saying the name of like a bad guy and invoking them, but you're trying to have bad guys not invoke a good guy, which is hilarious. Last little angle of the night features Fallon Henley. So Fallon Henley, earlier in the night, she jumped Carmen Petrovic and beat her up after her match with Ariana Grace. Then she told Jasmine and JC she was sick of all these new girls running around here. And because they're on the same type of time, they decided they were going to help her a little bit later. So Fallon Henley then cut a promo on Sol Ruca by saying she was a waste of a championship match at Heatwave, and that it should have been her in that match with Kalani Jordan. And if it had been, she wouldn't have won the title. Sol Ruca wrestled. Fallon Henley, I guess you could say wrestled. It didn't look good. This is another one of those things where it was kind of sloppy. Fallon Henley has a little bit more experience than Sol Ruca, so I'm actually disappointed in how this match looked. But JC Jane and Jasmine Nix ended up jumping Sol Ruca. It's a big old disqualification, and nobody came to do anything. Nobody came to help Sol at all. Some friends those people are in that locker room, for God's sake. Hey, Zeus in heaven. Anyway, it seems like JC, Jasmine, and Fallon are going to form some kind of super group in which they're going to beat up all the new girls that come in, which is crazy because Jasmine is one of the new girls. I know JC Jane's been there since Evolve closed. I forgot what her name was in Evolve, but that's when she came from. So she's been there since like 2021. Fallon Henley came in, I think, the next year with NXT 2.0. So, you know, she's the elder statesman of the group, even though I think of the three, Fallon Henley might be the oldest and the most experienced. I'm not sure. That's just, I think Fallon Henley's been around. She was on the indies for a long time. In any event, their motivations of being tired of the new girls. Okay, I mean, there's a lot of new girls floating around, so I guess it gives them a lot of people to play with. Anyway, the Charlie Dempsey. This is one of my favorite scenes right here. So Damon Kemp, who is Bobby Stevenson, the little brother of Gable Stevenson, he got released from his WWE contract this week. I don't know if his contract expired. I don't know if he was fired. I don't know. We don't know the circumstances. What we do know is that Charlie Dempsey put a body in the trunk and said that mistakes will not be tolerated. And he was serious. He said it so many times. And then he asked Miles if he heard it. Miles was like, mistakes will not be tolerated. Because, he's deaf. So Tavion Heights looks at them and is like, you guys do this often? Put bodies in trunks. Say, you guys do this all the time? So they put the body in the trunk. And then they go to get in the car. And Ren Sinclair looks right at them. And she was like on her phone looking at them. And they looking at her. And she was like, I didn't see anything. And then Charlie Dempsey was just kind of like, okay. And then got back in the car. She witnessed a murder. And, and Charlie Dempsey was just like, okay. But here's the thing. Like, it's silly as hell. But since Charlie Dempsey is trying to be Tony D'Angelo, he's a fake gangster. He's not for real, right? So he doesn't understand he can't leave witnesses. Because when Tony D'Angelo murdered two guys, he's murdered two people. Tony D'Angelo has. And now Charlie Dempsey has murdered two people. He murdered Drew Gulak, and now he's murdered Damon Kemp. So they have the same amount of bodies at least. But now Charlie Dempsey has a witness. And Ren Sinclair. So now we got some real fun stuff for them to do. As they probably try to torture this witness. Or wonder that she's going to snitch on them or something like that. Which might actually mean that they end up bringing a girl into the group. I don't know who that girl could possibly be. But I'm sure there's some girl on that roster who might be fun and interesting. They might bring in the Olympic girl. What was her name? Myra May Steele, or her name was Mensa Stock. First names, I don't remember. Tamira. Anyway, she might be an interesting little addition to the group, but she's a pure babyface from when I looked at it. So, but Charlie Dempsey being super amped about putting a body in the trunk is great. This was phenomenal TV. NXT just not being afraid of, and they're not doing actual murders though. They're alluding to murder. They're not saying that people are literally dead. You're not seeing people get hit by trains or stabbed or anything psychotic like that. That's TNA. They're doing the Hitchcock version, where you come onto the scene right after the crime has occurred. Like when Tony D'Angelo threw 2 dimes over the bridge. You didn't see him throw 2 dimes over the bridge. 2 dimes is already gone, and Tony D'Angelo is talking to the water about what 2 dimes crime, and they did the same thing here, where you don't literally see them do anything to Damon Kemp, but you see them put him in the trunk, and you notice that he's missing, and you notice that Charlie Dempsey is upset. And saying mistakes won't be tolerated. And all of a sudden, you could put 2 and 2 together that they decided to murder him. That's phenomenal. As long as you don't do something cartoonish, like when they stabbed Eric Young on TNA, or when they shot Johnny Bravo, because you can't come back from stuff like that. Something like this, you can always say the guy survived, and whatever, if he decides to come back or if they decide to bring him back. All right, so the final thing we've got here is not really an angle, it's much of a surprise. Cedric Alexander is now officially in NXT. I'm incredibly excited for that because I've been calling for this for the last several weeks. I've been saying there's plenty of guys on the main roster, specifically Cedric and Ashanti Theodonis. Both of them should be on NXT, and it seems like they both will be. Stevie Turner was the one who recruited Cedric Alexander. Mr. Stone is the one who recruited Ashanti Theodonis. Now, the weird thing is they were a tag team on the main roster, but they're being brought to NXT separately with no mention that they were tag team partners. They were even in the same scene, didn't have any reaction to each other, no conversation with each other. I'm pretty sure because NXT is one of those smart shows, they will likely mention it that they were tag team partners or their friends or something like that. But it'll probably be like a week or two. But Cedric Alexander is supposed to wrestle on the show next week, which is great. Now, what I was going to talk about earlier, in terms of Oro Mensah getting a title shot, is it's a good thing to see young black talent get an opportunity. You know, Oro Mensah is a guy, NXT UK, was bland. Nobody pays any attention to him. Now he's mixing it up with the champion. To see Cedric Alexander get a chance. He's been around for almost 10 years, you know. This is a guy who's on the cusp of getting cut, I would imagine, you know. And he probably has one of those main roster contracts that Sean kind of discusses, you know, when it came to like Drew Gulak and stuff. Where this guy has been on the main roster since 2018, 2019? And he hasn't really accomplished much of anything outside of being in the Hurt Business. I think he might have been a tag team champion, but that was it. You know, he has so much potential. He can actually talk. That's the weird thing about Cedric. He has a weird voice, but he can actually talk. He needs an opportunity. I'm glad to see, you know, Oro Mensah getting a shot, and Javon Evans, who, you know, I don't know if him being old biscuit mouth, it might not help you in the long run, but right now it's good to see these guys getting more opportunities, and they're diversifying the roster a little bit, and they're doing it in a natural way that doesn't seem forced or bullshit. You know, where they pushing the guys who are over. Javon Evans is over with the audience, so they pushing him. They're using him. You know, Cedric Alexander was notoriously over with the audience. He went on the main roster, died a death because he didn't get enough time, really, to develop. You know, he was always used as the bump guy in the Hurt Business, and he was stuck in the cruiserweight division and wasn't given any time there. As a solo act, he was mostly a job guy. As a tag team, he's mostly a job guy. I mean, it'd be nice to see him do something different. Same thing when they brought Apollo Crews down to NXT, you know. And then they gave him that So Raven Oracle gimmick, which was very strange. That was really strange. But I think that Cedric Alexander is going to be money in NXT. He has a lot of upside. And I'm glad to see Oro Mensah. You know, they went into his life story a couple of weeks ago about why this means so much to him. You know, about the metaphor, not just being in NXT, but the metaphor as a family to him, why that matters. And it really builds up anticipation for him to get his hands on Ethan Page. He's certainly not going to win and beat Ethan Page, and he shouldn't. I mean, he was a crash dummy a couple of weeks ago, you know, Oro Mensah was, you know. But then again, NXT has a history of taking guys who are usually the crash. I mean, Javon Evans, how many times have they written him out of the main event due to injuries because he just takes bumps backstage or whatever? But I think this was actually an effective one here. So NXT is doing a lot. They're doing pretty much everything that I wanted them to do. And I've been one of the biggest advocates for this show. And I really can't say much else. You know, it's a fun product. Yes, the in-ring part needs some work, especially these young ladies, because some of them don't have enough experience. They don't know how to do a collar and elbow tie-up. They're not good at it. Their strikes don't look believable. They look too light. They work too light. They need to snug up a little bit. You know, but also understand it's NXT. You don't want to go in there and black somebody's eye and bust somebody's nose. It's NXT. You know, save that for when you're in the main event of a pay-per-view or something. You know, at least when you're on the main roster laying your shit in. Going in there and breaking your legs and losing teeth on NXT is probably not the best way to go. So, but I had fun with the product tonight. You know, it was really fun. Let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap. They just